can at least start our introduction. So welcome everyone. Thank you for logging on this evening. My name is Matt Schumann. I am a programming librarian here at Carey. Before we begin, please let me know if you're experiencing any technical issues. If you have any questions tonight, please use the Q&A button or the raise hand function. In the raise hand function, I can allow you to unmute and whatnot. Lastly, this program is made possible by the generous donors to the Carey Library Foundation. And with us this evening is Bill Gette. Bill is the former sanctuary director of the Joppa Flats Education Center in Newburyport and the past president of the Friends of Parker River National Wildlife Refuge. He's led expeditions all across the world on all 7 continents, but tonight he'll be a little closer to home here in Massachusetts. So now please welcome Bill Gette.
Good evening again, Matt. Thank you. It's always a great pleasure to work with you on these programs. And if you can support your library, either as a volunteer or make a donation to the Friends group, that would be fabulous. Because whenever I talk to library groups, I always think of the libraries as the most important small d democratic institutions we have, because they serve the whole community so well. Well, one of the beauties of living in New England, and I suspect that most of the participants this evening are from New England, but if you're not, this is a very special part of the world, New England, and the Connecticut Lakes region in particular is a spectacular place. And I think most folks don't understand what the Connecticut Lakes region is, but we'll show you. Okay. The Connecticut Lakes are the northernmost part of New Hampshire. We're talking about tucked up right against the border with Quebec, Canada. And it gets the name Connecticut Lakes because it's the source of the Connecticut River that then flows from the origin in the Connecticut Lakes, flows down between, it's a border between Vermont and New Hampshire, goes through Massachusetts, and then empties into Long Island Sound. So this is a spectacular place, beautiful. And in order to get there, when I'm leaving from my home in Newburyport, we go up I-93, join I-93 in Manchester, and then head up on Route 3. And we go through Stewartstown, Pittsburgh. Notice no H, so it's not like the Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania. And then up to the Connecticut Lakes region. As you can see from the map, Quebec is just to the left of the area in Pittsburgh. It's a drive that from Newburyport, I always like to plan 4.5 hours. It probably doesn't need to take that long, but I do like to stop at a number of places along the way. One of the things that, now let's go back. There's Stewartstown, okay, just south of Pittsburgh. And when you go through Stewartstown, there's right on Route 3, there's a sign which says this is the 45th parallel. As you stand at this point on the 45th parallel, you're halfway between the equator and the North Pole. Well, I think a lot of people think if they are living in New England, boy, the equator is a long, long way south. But when you get to Stewartstown, you're only halfway from the equator to the North Pole. A lot of land up there, a lot of distance. Okay. And one of these quirks of history, this is the Indian Stream Republic. And I think the vast majority of people have never heard of it. This is up in northern New Hampshire. But basically, it was a constitution for the Indian Stream Republic was adopted in 1832. And then it became part of New Hampshire in 1840. But here's a quirk of history. When the Treaty of 1783, the Treaty of Paris, it set out the boundaries between what was at that point the British province of Lower Canada, which we now know it as Quebec, and the United States, which, well, in this case, is New Hampshire. And it was based on, the boundaries were based on the watershed, okay? So if the original boundary was thought to be from the 3rd Connecticut Lake, which is up in here. Whoa, sorry. Okay. Okay. But when they actually got on the ground to figure out where this area was, they realized, no, wait a minute, the watershed is not the third Connecticut Lake down to the second Connecticut Lake down to the first Connecticut Lake, but the watershed is further to the west. It's, first of all, Perry Stream and Indian Stream and Hall's Stream all flow into the Connecticut River, which then empties into the, basically into the Atlantic Ocean, where everything north of that empties into St. Lawrence River. Okay, so this area was disputed for a while. So some creative people up in northern New Hampshire decided that they would declare their own republic. And that green area that you see there was the Republic of Indian Stream. Just one of these little quirks of history, which I always. So the key wildlife viewing areas up in this area. These. Gotta wait, because I think my internet connection is unstable for the minute. I think it's back again.
Yeah, I think you're back now.
Okay, so all these little, these small red dots are the really good wildlife viewing venues. And if you're thinking about traveling up here sometime and would like a copy of this map, I can make it available for Matt, and he could send it out to you if you want it. But these are the places we'll be visiting during this virtual tour today. So we start at the bottom left-hand corner as we're coming up from Pittsburgh, in that area on Route 3, is Tabor Road. And I like to take folks, when I do tours like this, where you can see a real difference between habitats. And this happens to be Tabor Road, happens to be farmland, okay? And you can see the boreal forest in the background, but this is agricultural land. But you'll see a lot of different birds and wildlife in these agricultural fields or overgrown grasslands that you simply won't see once you get up into the boreal forest. So this is the type, this is savanna sparrow. We have them here in along the border where I am, along the ocean and in fields, especially later in the summer and in the fall. We get lots of these beautiful little sparrows. It looks sort of like a song sparrow, but you'll notice that really beautiful yellow wash that's above the eye. So a little bit smaller than a song sparrow. That's a grassland bird. And then bobolinks, also known, especially if you're in the South America, you know these as rice birds, R-I-C-E, rice birds, because they are very common in rice plantations. And unfortunately, the farmers shoot them because they're eating their rice. But here is a bird that migrates in the fall from northern New England all the way to southern Argentina. And they get down there for a couple months and they migrate all the way back up again. So this is the male, and it's a grassland bird. And notice the back, it's black, but notice those stripes of white. It just looks like a field with reflections of light off the stalks of grass or something. And then it has this on its nape, it has that yellow patch, makes it look like sort of like a dandelion. So this is the male, and a bird that most birders have never seen or wouldn't know exactly what it was. Anyway, this is the female bobolink. Yeah. So she makes her nest right on the ground level in among the grass. Yeah. This is a bird that, again, many beginning bird watchers don't see or not sure what it is when they do see it, but this is the female red-winged blackbird. Okay, so if you're a beginning birder and someone says, oh, there is a red-winged blackbird, and you look at that bird and say, there's no red wing on that blackbird. It's not even black. Well, okay, you learn quickly that birds are named after the male of the species, typically in their breeding plumage. So this is every bit as much a red-winged blackbird as the male is. It's just that she doesn't have a red wing or look like the male. But this is the male. Beautiful iridescent plumage like this with the red and that yellowish white stripe, the epaulets on the wing. So when this male bird is displaying, he shows those epaulets. He's showing it off to other males to say, hey, wait a minute, buddy, this is my territory, go away. Or to females, he shows those epaulets to say, hey, you know, I have a great territory here. How about being my mate? And they usually will have 3 or 4 mates. Now, if a male red-winged blackbird is flying through another male's territory, it will not show those epaulets. They cover them up. And they'll just, if he's not contesting with the other red-winged blackbird, he just flies through the territory, they cover up those things because, hey, what's the point of fighting if you're nothing to fight over? Okay. So when you get up here, these birds, these little females they don't have the bright colors of the male, but this is an eastern bluebird. Just notice the blue in her tail and her wings. No, she's not as colorful as a male, but is just stunning, beautiful bird. And this is the male. So this eastern bluebird, you'll find those in open fields. We find them along Tabor Road and places like that. You won't find them inside a boreal forest. Yeah. This is eastern kingbird. This is a flycatcher. Has a habit of setting up on a twig and then flying out, catching insect, and very often coming right back to the same perch again. And if you look at the top of its head, you might notice its feathers are lifted up a little bit, and you might see a little bit gold color. Well, that's where it gets its name, kingbird, because it looks like it has a little crown on it. Now, in order to display if it's being challenged by another bird or is being threatened, or if it has a potential mate fly by during breeding season, it will lift up that crest so you can see that golden colored crown that it has. Otherwise, you can't see it. A bird of open grasslands. Well, whenever you have a big field like that and it's slightly wet, which the fields along Tabor Road are, this is Wilson's snipe. And so it walks along the ground and it probes its bill down in the mud, looking for, in this case, worms, things of that nature. A unique characteristic of these birds with these long bills is they can open up just the very tip of their bill. They don't have to open up the whole bill to grab something. Okay, just the very tip. It's because if they're stuffing their bill down into the mud, the end of their bills are very sensitive. There are chemical receptors there, so they basically can smell or taste for worms and things when they probe their bill down in the mud. But just think, if you take your two fingers and push it into mud or into sand and then try to open the fingers like that, it's very difficult to do. But in this case, all these birds have to do is just open the very tip. It's called distal rincon kinesis. Distal meaning the away or the tip. Rincon has something to do with the nose, like a rhinoceros. And kinesis meaning it can move. So this is when you have woodcocks and snipes and dowitchers. They have a long bill that they can just open the tip of their bill. Okay. Now, wherever you have wet areas and you have cattails and other things, this is American bittern, and it can be very, very difficult to see. But so in the left third of my image here, we have an American bittern. And what he or she will often do is put their head straight up in the air. Notice that the head is sort of out of an angle, but usually they're standing with their head straight up in the air. And notice the background. You have the brown and then the white, just like the stripes on the throat of this bird. And it's watching down, looking for frogs and tadpoles and eels and whatever might be coming around. They'll also take the eggs out of bird nests. This American bittern. So whenever you open grasslands, you should be looking for red-tailed hawk. And this is a beautiful example of red-tail. Every red-tail I've ever seen, I've seen tens of thousands of them, every one of them has this band across the breast that you see. It's called a belly band. And that's a really good field mark because some red-tailed hawks, some young ones, and some red-tailed simply don't have a red tail. Okay. And so this is a really good character. Notice the hook bill for ripping through the flesh of a squirrel or whatever might capture. Forward-facing eyes, just like humans do, binocular vision. Yeah. And when it flies, it has this beautiful profile. You can see that band across the belly really, really easily here. Yeah. Open fields, great place to see tree swallows. What a beautiful, just, this bird could look black or this iridescent blue because this feather has dark pigment in the feathers, but it also has crystals of melanin within the feathers that act as prisms. And those prisms are reflecting just certain wavelengths of light. And in this case, what you're seeing is this spectacular blue color. Okay. Then we have barn swallows. Along this Tabor Road, there are a couple buildings that have open doors. The people that live along there are really great. they leave the barn doors open and things like that, so the birds can come in and make their nest inside the barns, which barn swallows typically do. And one of my favorite swallows, I think of these birds as masons of the air. Because notice all those little globs that are, those are, the birds will fly down, find a muddy pool. They'll take a mouthful of this wet, sticky mud, bring it up and plaster it on, just like a mason is.
Still can't hear you. If you want to just try turning the mic on and off. I don't know if that.
Okay, I don't know what.
Oh, there you are. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll go back a couple slides. So did you see this, Matt? Did you hear me on this one? Okay,
yeah.
This is the tree swallow and then the barn swallow.
Yep.
Okay, and then again, this is the cliff swallow, as I say, the masons of the air, because they make this by taking mouthfuls of mud from a mud puddle and sticking and building a house. They do that. So the place where we stay, whenever I go up there, is the Glen Lodge. It's on the first Connecticut Lake. There are 3 Connecticut lakes. This is the largest of them. This is where we stay. No, this is not where we stay. This is where we stay. Okay. This is if you're looking and interested in going up this place, I highly recommend it. The fall is a beautiful time to go up there, but the spring, early June, mid-June into July can be spectacular. And it's the Glen Lodge at Bear Tree. Look that up. So this is the first Connecticut Lake, and this is the main lodge building, but they have various different cabins. I would say about 7 cabins that you can rent. Well, I always rent a cabin. So you're right on the first Connecticut Lake. Okay. So I just took some images. This is June 7th, when you usually go up in that time period, and get steam coming off the lake. And then here's that sunrise just a half an hour later or so. And then when things burn off, this is what you get. You're looking across the lake. You're looking to the east in this image. And that's McGalloway Mountain that you see sort of just right of center. And just beyond that is Maine. In a sense, just beautiful place here. So this is just, I just love the scenery. This is just part of the first Connecticut Lake. We often find very interesting. I'm very much interested in butterflies and moths, and every once in a while, this is a Polyphemus moth. It's about 6 inches across. Okay, and this is a male. You can tell by its antennae. They look like feathers. That makes it easier for them to sense the pheromones from the female Polyphemus moths. Beautiful. And this is Cecropia. Really beautiful. Another male Cecropia moth. Big. And one of the beauties of staying at the first Connecticut Lake or at the Glen is at nighttime, and sometimes during the day, you can hear the loons calling. And the calls are just spectacular. These loony sounds. Okay. And it's nice to just drift off to sleep when they start singing to each other at nighttime. Yeah. Some other birds that nest along the river. This is a common merganser. They nest along mountain streams or streams of like a Perry Stream, Indian Stream, and that's where they have the young ones. This is the female, and here is the male. So talk about very significant sexual dimorphism in terms of plumage. Really, notice also, look at the head. It's red, but it comes down to the neck, and it's a straight line across. It's like it's when it was made. So somebody put masking tape and sprayed the red right up the masking tape and took it off. That's a really good field mark if you're considering whether this is a common merganser or a female red-breasted merganser. So this is the male common merganser. And typically we don't see many of the males because right after breeding, the males take off and the females are then there with their young ones. This is a woodpecker that is fairly common in Massachusetts but becomes more common in Maine and New Hampshire. This is pileated or pileated woodpecker. It's the male. And you can tell because if you look at the base of the bill, there's a red patch there. The female, it's black. So this is a male, big woodpecker. Okay. And here's a family of yellow-bellied sapsuckers. So the male is actually in the nesting cavity that you see here, and the female, they're taking turns bringing food to their young ones. So he had just taken in a mouthful of insects, and he's coming out as the female arrived back with her mouthful of insects, feeding the young ones. This is a bird. This is a American redstart. We only see those during the spring, summer, and very early fall. They all are migrating to at least Central America. This is a size of a chickadee. Beautiful, a male American redstart. I think if you first look at it, you can almost think, wow, that looks like a Baltimore Oriole in terms of its orange and black. But these are tiny. These are only the size of a chickadee. And there's the female. So where he is orange and black, she's yellow and dark grayish black. Okay. Northern Parula, Northern Parula warbler. This is another bird, again, that migrates completely out of our area during the wintertime. Some of them overwinter in the southeastern part of the United States, but most of them go to Middle America, to places like Belize and Costa Rica. Okay? And there's the male. He has a mouthful of food bringing it to his young ones. I think the color of this male, notice the top of the head is sort of like a steely blue. Nice. Oh, sorry. Another wood warbler that again, they all migrate away in the late fall. This is black and white warbler. This is a male. Okay. And there's the female. Talk about some of these warblers being incredibly colorful. This is Blackburnian warbler. These are really quite common in the mixed deciduous conifer forest. If you have a complete boreal forest with firs and spruce, you typically don't see them. But where there are breaks in the forest and where there are deciduous trees, this is a really good place to look for. What a stunning bird. Yeah. And this last time I was up there, this last June, one of my favorite. I look at a cedar waxwing and I can't think of anything that's possibly wrong with this bird. It's just a perfect design. It has a crest, it has a black mask. The mask is outlined in white. It has these little, to look at the wings, has little tips of reddish color. And at the tail, it has yellow. And let's get its name waxwing, because if you think of before we had these pre-made envelopes, a person wrote a note, they would fold paper over and then seal that envelope to get around the letter with sealing wax. And so I guess when they were naming these things, that it sort of looked like that those little tips of red or with yellow looked like sealing wax wings. Okay. Usually, not always, but usually we will hear barred owls in the evening time. And they have a very distinctive call. It's, who cooks for you? Who cooks for you all? Okay, so you'll hear those sometimes at nighttime. Sometimes like this one, we get to see them in the daytime. That it's not unusual. Most owls are very secretive during the daytime, but every once in a while you'll find one like this one. Just love our squirrels, okay, and chipmunks. What a fun. We have a couple of chipmunks that live right around my house. And it's just great fun to watch them. Okay, so one of the streams now, these are logging roads. So Indian Stream Road is a dirt road, well maintained. Now, sometimes after major storms, sometimes the roads are there are detours around them, or sometimes they are closed. We ran into some places where we couldn't drive all the way. We had to walk some. And you never know from year to year. But going up Indian Stream, one of the tributaries to the Connecticut River, we're heading up to Terrell Pond, which is a beautiful little place. And at least up there, Indian Stream Valley, they think that's a God's country, and I have absolutely no reason to argue with them. Okay? And this is what Indian Stream looks like. So it's mixed forest. You'll see a lot of in the foreground, lots of alder, there are willows, there's spruces and firs. And this type of mixed forest is just really productive for a lot of different species of birds. Right along the river, this is a belted kingfisher. This is the male belted kingfisher. Happens to be sitting up on a wire, looking for fishes in the Indian Stream. Now, a very common bird up in northern New Hampshire, but not very common except during migration further south. This is northern water thrush. Beginning birders, I know names can be really tough, but this is a warbler. This is a wood warbler, just like a black and white warbler did. But this is a bird that becomes very common as you go further north. I mean, very, very common in northern Alaska, for example. It loves the older thickets and willow thickets that are along the Indian Stream. Northern water thrush. Just a forested area. We're always looking when I'm going up to a place where they've done some forestry activity, because a lot of times you think, oh, it's a beautiful forest and they've cut it all down. What a disaster that is. Well, except there are a lot of species of insects and birds in particular that need transitional forests. Okay, the inside of a boreal forest is really pretty dark. But you open up where there's been a fire or where there have been forestry operations, as that starts to grow, you have plants like sweet ferns and raspberry bushes. And if you're a good forestry person, you leave some trees that could produce seeds that will help reforest that area. So that undergrowth, those small shrubs and things are really good for a number of different birds. This is one of which, right along the streams and along the edges of these forested areas. This is older flycatcher. So one of those tiny little flycatchers that are difficult to tell apart unless they sing. Yeah. Blue-headed vireo. Think of it, it's a really big, it's not a warbler, but if you're thinking about size, it's more the size of a tufted titmouse than it is a chickadee. Okay, so sort of a comparison. And look at the field mark. It looks like it's wearing spectacles. Okay, the eye ring and then the bar that goes, that's the area, the lores, L-O-R-E-S. The base between the base of the bill and the eye, called the lores, L-O-R-E-S. Not the white. You see one, you'll know what that is. Red-eyed vireo. This is one of those birds that throughout the day, it's singing. Now, they don't move very much. They'll just sit sort of where they're hard to see, but they keep singing away. And their song is sort of like, I'm here, you're there. I'm here, you're there. I'm there. They just keep going on and on with that song. So if you're patient and you look carefully, you can see this. You might notice its eye is reddish, red-eyed vireo. Very easy to tell by its song. Common yellowthroat. This is one of those birds that really likes to nest around edges of wetlands and in areas where there has been, again, forestry operations or fires, because they like to make their nest. The females, this is a little female, likes to make her nest down in among the shrubs and among the raspberries and the sweet ferns and things of that nature. Okay, and this is the male, common yellowthroat. This is also a warbler. So I hope you're getting the sense that so many birds that may be warblers are not called warblers. They're redstarts and water thrushes and yellowthroats and things of that nature. But you'll learn it in time. This is one of our smallest warblers, but really handsome. Black-throated blue. This is a bird that in the boreal forest, they like to be in where there's mixed with deciduous trees. Okay? It has a very distinctive song. It's very buzzy. It's like beer, 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 bee. Beer, 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 bee. And so this is the male. I love butterflies. Okay. Now, if you saw this butterfly down in our area in southern New England, middle New England, southern New England, you would be right in calling it eastern tiger swallowtail. But if you go up to northern New England, up to New Hampshire, you then start to get Canadian tiger swallowtails. And they look almost identical to our eastern tiger swallowtails, but they're considerably smaller. So here it is, a swallowtail that's nectaring on, in this case,
Bill, it looks like the audio cut out again. Last thing I heard was the Canadian tiger swallowtail. You're
can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't know. Now it's telling me my internet is unstable again.
Okay. Yeah, it was
Okay,
just
hopefully you can hear me now.
forge ahead. I'll let you know if it happens again.
Okay, so this is Canada Tiger Swallowtail. Looks very similar to our Eastern Tiger Swallowtail, but it's quite a bit smaller. Okay. Now, again, what's one person's trash and one person's waste is another person's, or in this case, butterflies' gold mine. This is a whole group of about 20 Canadian Tiger Swallowtails that are coming down to get minerals from a dung pile, okay, that is well rotted down. But all those are coming in to get the minerals that are in that waste. Morning cloak butterfly. This is usually one we see mostly in the early spring because they overwinter as adults. This is one of the longest lived butterflies. They live 10 to 11 months. Okay, and they, as I say, they overwinter as adults. And so that's why we see them in late March, early April. But you will see them also during the summertime. And butterflies are just incredibly, this is red admiral butterfly. American copper. This is a tiny little butterfly, but to see every one of them is really stunning. This is the first time I saw one this June up in Connecticut Lake. This is mustard white. We have very common one is the cabbage white, which is just everywhere around here. But this is one more typical a little bit further north, mustard white. And this is skippers. Skippers are butterflies that look more like moths. They have a really chunky body and the way they hold their wings. But this is this is checkered skipper, very small little butterfly. We have many species, probably 30 species of skippers here in eastern New England. Hobbamock skipper, its wingspan is just barely an inch. And then on this last trip in June, this is common fleabane, also Philadelphia fleabane. I think that's Philadelphia fleabane is the preferred. Usually you think of these fleabanes as being primarily white, but this is just spectacular with the rays. This is a composite flower. It's in the aster family. So you have the ray flowers, those spokes that looks like little petals. That's an individual flower. And then you have the yellow, the disc flowers. Those are also individual flowers. So that's called a composite. And in the world, the largest group of flowering plants are orchids. We don't think of many orchids around here, but worldwide, they're the most common, most species. And the second one are the asterity or the asters, these composite flowers. So we get up to Terrell Pond, and this is what a reward. I mean, you have driving up about 10 miles along this dirt road, which again, for me, I think is always spectacular. And you end up here at Terrell Pond. Okay. You see bald eagles. They're always nice. And one of the one of the birds that we always hope to see, we don't get it every time, but certainly the majority of times. And I've led about 22 trips to Connecticut Lakes. This is black-backed woodpecker. If you're familiar with our hairy woodpecker or red-bellied woodpecker, it's sort of in between in size. But this is a bird of the boreal forests. We don't get them here in southern New England at all. I love common ravens. I mean, the common raven is so important in mythology, in the Native Americans in North America, and especially when you go further north, the native peoples of northern Saskatchewan and northern Alaska, places like that. I mean, the mythology about ravens. I mean, the ravens. One story is that ravens, the earth was completely dark, and one of the ravens flew up to the sky, which was all dark, and punched a hole in the sky, and that what's let the sun come in. So we owe the sun to the raven. They're magic. They're just the folklore about ravens is spectacular. Yeah. I love wildflowers. This is Canada Mayflower. So if you're down in New England and I mean in Massachusetts or something, and you miss your wildflowers, Well, you can go up to Connecticut Lakes 3 weeks later, and they're just coming into blossom. This Canada Mayflower. This is trout lily. They're nyctinastic in that the blossoms close up at nighttime and then only open back up when it's sunny. And it gets its name trout lily for one of two reasons. The two explanations are given. The one is that they start to blossom at the time that the trout traditionally would swim up the rivers to spawn. That's one. The other one is, if you look at the leaves, if you've seen trout in the water, they sort of look like blotchy like that, like the leaves of this American trout lily. Okay? So then right up along Route 3, okay, you can stop at Moose Alley, Moose Falls Flowage. Now, here's a cow and her calf of the prior year. Moose are really in trouble in northern New England. Global warming and the warm winters usually it got really cold and it would kill off the ticks, a lot of the ticks, but it's been relatively so warm that there's so many ticks that some of the, especially the young ones, become salivated. They're just so covered with ticks that they become anemic and die. I mean, it's really bad. Okay, so where say 15 years ago, when I was taking people, it would be expected that we're driving along the road along Route 3, and then at night in the evening time, that you'd see 4 or 5 of them, no problem. Well, we went up there this in June. I couldn't find a single one. So anyway, here's Bullwinkle. There's you can see his antlers. We often see red fox. We also see gray fox. I don't happen to have a photograph of gray fox, but this is a beautiful red fox. So alert. And in the evening, I always love to go drive along Route 3 to hear the chorus of the thrushes. I'd sort of like to give you an assignment. I'd like you to go on the internet after this and ask it to Google to play you the song of hermit thrush. This is hermit thrush. Or Veery, that's Veery, or Swainson's thrushes. Their songs are spectacularly beautiful. This happens to be hermit thrush with the rusty red tail. Beautiful bird. Yeah. More warblers. This is magnolia. So the point being is the Connecticut Lake region is a very, very important area for breeding wood warblers because we have so many different varieties. This is the female, a little more cryptically colored, and there's the male. Beautiful combination of yellow and black, silver and white. This is the Veery. This is the other thrush, and it gets its name because it has a call note that sounds like veer, veer. So Veery, and its song is just wonderful. It's a flute that sounds like it's water going down the drain. It goes. I think you'd do yourself a favor if you ask Google to play that for you. This is the Swainson's thrush. This is one I view it as a song that goes up the scale and sort of disappears. So I ask people to think of milkweed down. The wind catches the milkweed and carries it up and up and up and up and away. So that's what the song reminds me of. Okay. So old man's beard. This is a lichen, symbiotic relationship between an alga and a fungus. Moose Falls Flowage. Not exactly where it gets its name. This is one of those places we always stop looking for moose. Because the beavers in some of the side waters we get with beavers. And wherever there's wetlands, swamp sparrow, really handsome. I don't want anybody to tell me that sparrows aren't beautiful. Some of them are incredibly beautiful. This is a nice looking bird. I like ferns. Ferns are those, just amazing. Some of them are very easy to identify, but a lot of them are very, very difficult because they hybridize between species. Okay, but this is cinnamon fern. The spore cases are on a single stalk. So you have a sterile fronds, the green ones, and you have the fertile fronds, the golden ones, nice cinnamon color. Sensitive fern, wherever there's a wetland area, you'll get them, damp soil. They get the name sensitive fern because they typically die back as soon as the first frost comes. And then we go up to what I call the T intersection. Okay, the T intersection, this is the Connecticut River. Okay, so if you're familiar with the Connecticut, what is it, Bridgeport or wherever it empties into Long Island Sound. Anyway, this is the Connecticut River as it is in the Connecticut Lakes. So right in this area, I always look for this bird. This is a yellow-bellied flycatcher. It has a simple little call. It's chipek, chipek. And the place to look for them is around moss, bogs, acidic bogs. They typically will sit up on a tree and they'll sing away. Well, I always love Canada jays. When I first started birding back in 1961, this bird was called Canada jay. And then about 15 years ago, for some reason, or maybe it was 20 years ago, they decided, no, we're going to call it gray jay. Well, about 5 years ago, they changed the name back to Canada jay. I think that's where it should be. This is a Canada jay. And if you go up to a Connecticut Lakes region like this, it's a good idea to take a little snack, okay? This happens to be mixed nuts. So here comes a Canada jay, flies in. They love to be around campgrounds or where campers are, and they'll come down. Now, what this bird has come down and grabbed, as you can see, at least 3 peanuts in its bill, but it also has some in its crop, in part of its throat here. So they'll come in, grab a whole bunch and fly off and hide them and then come back again for more. Very often you'll hear people who have been camping out in the wilderness area and they might be cooking up bacon or something in a pan. These birds will fly right over the pan, grab the bacon and fly off with it. They're really, really smart. Okay. Chickadee. Okay, this is a breeding pair. If you look inside the hole, there's one of the chickadees inside the nest cavity. And these birds are really smart. When they go to they find a soft tree that happened to be an old birch tree. They start working on it. And when they are excavating the hole, they will collect up what the little, think of as sawdust, and they will then take a mouthful of it and fly away and then drop it and then come back. Well, what are they doing? Well, they're trying to conceal from a possible predator that there's a nest cavity there, okay? Because if they leave a whole pile of sawdust on the ground, it's going to be obvious, hey, look up because there must be a hole up there, okay? This is ruby-crowned kinglet, one of our smallest birds, only 2/3 the size of our chickadee. This is the male, and that ruby crown that you see, you typically do not see that unless it's disturbed or anxious or something. Of course, during courtship, it lifts up those red feathers in the middle, but of its crown, but otherwise it closes them down. Okay. Red-breasted nuthatches are a common nuthatch around our area. In the northern hardwood forest are the white-breasted nuthatch, but in the boreal forest, this is the one, the red-breasted nuthatch. Really beautiful bird. Some more warblers that you see around this area, black-throated green warbler. It has 2 different songs. One of it's it's really buzzy. One is trees, 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 murmuring trees, and the other one is cheese, 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 limber cheese. Ways to remember, this is the female, much more cryptically colored. Then Scott Bog. This is another one of those. Now, you see, a bog up in northern New Hampshire is not what we think of like a quaking bog. It's basically a lake. They very often call them bogs. But getting up there, you go along this forest, which is boreal forest on the right-hand side of the road, and cut over area with willows and alders and birches and things of that. So really a diverse area right here. Reindeer lichen, what people call reindeer moss. It's not a moss, it's a lichen. It's a symbiotic relationship between a fungus and an alga again. The alga producing the food, the fungus producing the house. just beautiful. This is wood anemone. This is one of those spring ephemerals down in our area, but they'll again coming into blossom later because the season comes later up in northern New Hampshire. Partridge berry, amazing. Yeah. And bearberry or Connecticut. Now, Connecticut is a plant that is important, was very important to Native Americans and especially of the northern latitudes, because that was their tobacco. And they would smoke the leaves of this Connecticut that had been dried, mixed with other herbs. That was their tobacco. And they would use those during religious ceremonies and things of that nature. Insects, wide variety of insects. This is six-spotted green tiger beetle. This is a predatory beetle feeding on other small insects. Amazing metallic green. And the stream that's at Scott Bog. And one of our trips, we went there and there was a storm coming. But you get this amazing, absolutely still water with the reflection. I think I could almost put that image in upside down and you might not notice, at least not immediately. So that is a reward for going out to Scott Bog. This is a deciduous conifer. We think of conifers as being evergreens. Well, a larch drops its needles in the fall, just like a maple tree or an oak tree, but it produces cones. I know this tree by three names: hackmatack, tamarack, and larch. They're all the same tree by different names. This is witch's broom. This plant is doing chemical engineering on the host tree, and it produces this growth that you refer to as witch's brooms. A very common singing bird up in Connecticut in the springtime is this white-throated sparrow. Beautiful song. It's a very clear whistle. It sounds like, oh, Canada, 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 Canada. Then a lower note, oh, Canada, 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 Canada. So one of those birds that early in the morning, late in the evening, you would have no difficulty finding and hearing that bird sing. Brown creeper, size smaller than a chickadee, while its body smaller than that of a chickadee. With the tail, it is longer than a chickadee. Hunting along, basically on the trunks of trees, has a way of feeding there. It will start and it will go actually around the tree, like going up a spiral staircase. So nuthatches have the habit of hunting. They come down the tree head first. Brown creepers go around the tree in a spiral way. And most other birds work the way up a tree. So each bird is sort of partitioning off. It's having different strategies in order to do the same thing, find food. Okay. This is purple finch. We have the most common finch we have around our area, around Massachusetts, is by far the house finch. But this is purple finch, and this is the female purple finch. And there's the male. Okay, so again, sexual dimorphism is really pronounced in this bird. Okay. East Inlet. Okay. This is ovenbird. And its call is, first of all, notice how big the eye is compared to the rest of the head. This is a bird that basically makes its living in dark forests on the forest floor, back in the forest. But they have a very distinctive call. It's teacher, 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 teacher. Teacher, 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 teacher. And they can be very difficult to find, but once you do, you can get an image that looks like this. Very common bird, yellow rumped warbler. You can tell that this bird, this is a male yellow warbler. I'm sorry, yellow rumped warbler. Now notice it has its bill absolutely stuffed with insects it's captured. So here's a male bird that's bringing food back to the nest for the female and the young ones. He's definitely doing his job. Okay, and this is the female. Okay. Wilson's warbler. If you're a bird watcher and you've been at it for a while, The American Ornithological Society, which is the organization responsible for naming birds, are in the process of renaming all the birds that have a human's name associated with it. So Wilson's warbler is going to be some black-capped warbler, something, I don't know. And why? Why are they doing this? Well, a lot of these, for example, there was that McCown's longspur. This is a bird of the western part of the country, McCown. Well, McCown was a Confederate general who had slaves. And the idea is, why are we naming a species of bird after somebody who, well, fought against the nation, was a traitor, and all those kinds of things? Why should we do that? And so that's what's going on now. So bloodroot, one of our spring ephemeral flowers that are still in some, there's still some around in early June. Marsh marigold. This is sessile-leaved bellwort. Notice the leaves in the left-hand image. The leaves are just stuck onto the main stalk. You know, there's no petiole. There's no, at the base of the leaf, there's not a little stem that then takes it to the major part of the plant. Now, according to the doctrine of signatures, traditional medicine, things like, we're going back hundreds of years. The idea was, in the doctrine of signatures, is that God made everything on this planet that humans need. Everything that we need for any purpose is here. We just have to figure out what these plants are used for. Well, this plant, when it's in bud, looks like, if you go to the back of your throat, uvula, the thing that hangs down in the back of your mouth. The idea was, according to the doctrine of signatures, well, God has given us, by giving that shape of this bud, that plant must be useful in treating mouth diseases and things of that nature. Okay. Okay. Common plant in any wetland, but northern blue flag. But notice the lines. It's blue, but notice all those lines that lead into the center of the flower. Okay, the plant is showing the pollinating insects where to go to get the nectar. Okay, there's a roadmap. This is either red, depending on which book you look at, it's either red or purple. Trillium, the three beautiful reddish petals. Notice underneath it, it has three green sepals. Now, just this year, for the first time, I went into Big Brook Bog. It's another lake again, okay? And that's what it looks like. And when we were there, we found this mink frog. They have a short season up there in the northern part of New Hampshire. But when we were there, the New Hampshire Fish and Game, the Berlin Fish Hatchery folks, came to stock this bog with trout. I mean, it's a big deal. I mean, for the economy of the area, it's really big. For people that are coming up there to hunt and to fish, or snowmobile in the winter, that type of thing. So when we were there, they started stocking the place with all these fishes here. So if you ever wonder, how do they stock ponds? That's how they do it. Then McGalloway Mountain Road, I talked about McGalloway Mountain previously, but indigo bunting. This was this June, found this indigo bunting along the side of the road, just singing away. This is the male, really beautiful. Okay. And this McGalloway Mountain Road is really, this is Boreal chickadee. So it used to be called brown-capped chickadee, as opposed to black-capped chickadee, brown-capped chickadee, but it's now called Boreal chickadee. And this is, again, you have to go up to northern New England in order to see these. I was talking to you before how important it is where there are cut over areas or burned over areas, and those places start growing back into sweet fern and raspberries and small trees. That is the habitat for this bird. This is Lincoln's sparrow. And Notice it sort of looks like a song sparrow or savanna sparrow, but it has those tiny little brown stripes on the breast, and it's on a buffy background. All the other sparrows that look like that have those little stripes, but it's on white. This is on buffy color. Lincoln's sparrow. Chestnut-sided warbler. This is a little female. Notice she has just a little bit of brown or chestnut on her flanks. What I was doing at the time, I was fishing. I was going pss, 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 to attract these birds. And this bird came right in and was looking, trying to find where was this noise coming from and what did that mean? And here's the male. You see that chestnut goes all the way along the side and has this incredibly beautiful gold crown. Okay. And that's the end of the presentation for this evening. And again, if you have any questions about going up there and what to do and when's the best time of year, if you want one of the maps of the areas, I'd be happy to share with you. So Matt, as it is, that I think is where I'm at.
Yeah, thank you so much. Love the last photo here too. Looks like if anybody has any questions, just send them via the chat or Q&A, whatever is easier for you, or do the raise hand thing. There is one question so far, and how are the bugs at Glen Lake in the spring or summer?
Okay, I always try to go during either the first or second week of June. Okay? And I usually go up there I like to go up there for 3 nights. And to address the question, insects are not a problem at that time of year. Now, do you have to wear a little bit of insect repellent because there are some mosquitoes? The answer is yes. But I think most people view that area, black flies and dying of black fly, not an issue. I've done more than 20 trips up there, and it has never been an issue. You have to take, of course, you should be wearing long pants, you should have a long shirt, you should have a hat, you should use insect repellent just because there are ticks or, just like walking around in the woodlands down here. But I know people will often say, I don't want to go up there because there are way too many insects. Not a problem. I would definitely encourage you to go.
Somebody asks, or they said, great photos. Did you take all of them?
Yes.
I had a question about the fish that they restock with. Do they breed those fish like locally up there, or do they?
Yes, they do. Let me just go back in Berlin. Okay, it's not Berlin, by the way. It's Berlin. At the time of the Second World War, it had been called Berlin. But when the Second World War started, it went to Berlin. Okay, and so anyway, there's a fish hatchery which they raise from fertilized eggs, and they raise them to a certain size, and then they let them go. Then they restock these ponds with them, because again, fishing and hunting, and that's incredibly important for the economy of that area.
Yeah.
But it was really fun to see the operation.
Sure. Yeah. Of course. Well, if there are no other questions, thank you for sharing all your knowledge and all the photos of wonderful animals in this area. It looks like a really great spot, and I hope to get up there soon myself.
Yeah, you'd like it.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Bill, and thank you everyone for coming. Have a good evening.
Well, good evening. Thank you.